All right, we are live. Welcome to those of you. This is our Sunday live stream, a bit later than usual. Sleeping Beauty here. Forgot we had live streams on Sundays, so normally we'll try and do these around noon on Sundays, but we're starting this one a little late. We'll probably go for like an hour or so. So fire away if you guys got any dynasty questions, rookie questions, football questions, non-football questions, whatever. We'll answer it.
Is there? My screen is on the wrong monitor, so I'm gonna do that there, so you guys can see my ugly mug.
Yep. Just throwing this in the Discord real quick.
Is it?
Lamar, classic.
Hey, is it? What's up, Lamar? Can show his comment. Yo.
What'd you think of the Wentz trade? I don't know if we've talked since that happened.
The compensation, I guess it kind of makes sense if Reich does believe that's his guy and that's his franchise quarterback going forward. And I like that they got the stipulation on the first round pick, because the Eagles probably just said, "Oh, we want a first and third for him."
Mm-hmm.
Colts were like, "Oh yeah, if he doesn't play 70 or 75% of the snaps, like we're not giving you the first. We'll make that a second."
Yeah,
So
I'm kind of surprised they don't do trades like that more often, like conditional second rounders. Like I'm kind of surprised that doesn't happen a little bit more often in the NFL, because that's a big time like NBA and NHL thing, but it doesn't really happen that much in the NFL, which is weird.
Yeah, that was smart. So overall, the problem is I don't know if Wentz is going to be the same player. I don't
either. But if he's anything like he was in 2017, or even like, I mean,
even if he was just 2018, 2019 Wentz, like that's
I think that's better than what you had this past year with Phillip Rivers. So
100%.
I mean, I keep hearing the like, oh well, like Indianapolis has a top 5 roster. I'm like, I don't know, do they? I don't think they have a top 5 roster. I think their coaching staff makes it seem like they have a top 5 roster.
Well, the way I view their squad is they have a lot of good players. A lot of good players. Like
they're just like the Patriots.
Yeah,
like the Patriots were all like, we're never the best roster in the league.
Like, but yeah, they have no real holes on their team. But like, aside from like let's just say Wentz ends up becoming like that franchise quarterback, what superstars do they have on their roster?
Nelson, DeForest Buckner, and Darius Leonard.
Yeah,
and maybe Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and the fourth one would be a running back, the most like obsolete.
Yeah. Like I mean, Ryan Kelly's a really good player, I guess. You got, I mean, like no one really else on their defense is like a great player outside of Leonard and Buckner. Like their secondary's got good players. I guess Julian
Kenny
Blackburn
Moore as well
was really good.
Kenny Moore.
Yeah, they have a bunch of just good players, honestly.
Their linebacking corps might be one of the best in the league as well.
Yeah,
they got obviously
second best in the league.
Oh yeah, okay. But like for real though, I mean, like obviously you guys too, but like Leonard, Okereke, and they also have another Anthony Walker. Those 3 linebackers are pretty dang good, like for a core. And their defensive line, obviously, like they need a little bit on the edge, I'd assume. But aside from that, I mean, you got DeForest Buckner in your interior. You don't need as much of an edge pressure because they're going to get basically walked into sacks because quarterbacks.
Well, you saw how much he made a difference this past year when he was on that. Like, because their defense was like an average defense the year before, and then they went to like a top 5 unit this year with Buckner coming in, and the Niners defense took a big step back. Part of that was because of injuries, but I'm sure losing Buckner for the Niners definitely didn't help either.
What a savvy move, by the way. They were probably eyeing Javon Kinlaw in the draft, and they said, you know what? We have cap space. Let's just get the proven top 3 defensive tackle.
Yeah, exactly.
Buckner.
Yeah, Kinlaw was a good like prospect, and he still is a good a good player. But I mean, Buckner
was
like,
year.
Yeah, Buckner was literally like a top like 2 or 3 like interior penetrator in the NFL, like him, Chris Jones, and Aaron Donald. Like Chris Jones and him were like right behind Aaron Donald, obviously, because he's in a tier of his own. But
Aaron Donald, man,
Aaron Donald's a freak of nature. But yeah, like the Buckner impact, they should be a really good team. I think they got to surround Wentz with some more receiving talent. I think they'd be wise to go after some smoke in free agency. Go after Kenny Golladay. Go after Allen Robinson. Go after Chris
they
Godwin
need a wide receiver one.
I think they need a wide receiver 1 because if you have Kenny Golladay, for example, then your core suddenly looks a lot better. You have Paris Campbell and
Michael
Pittman and whoever else you want to add. Maybe you add a day 2 receiver in the draft.
Pascal, Pascal's not a bad wide receiver 4 for your team. I don't want him to be anything more than that, but
with the depth of this receiver class too, you can probably get like a
Darden, Dwayne
or not even that late. Just like honestly, you could just get like a 4th receiver, like Tutu Atwell in like the 5th round or 4th round or something like that.
Heck, even like Anthony Schwartz, just to get speed in that unit, like as well, like to complement what Pittman and then A-Rob or Kenny Golladay would bring you. So
yeah, that division's going to be interesting next year because I mean, it's like the Texans are going to suck if they trade Watson, but Tennessee should be good again, obviously, and then the Colts with Wentz, I'd imagine they'd be just as good, if not better, than they were last year, and then
Jaguars with T-Law,
and then the Jaguars with T-Law. If Trevor Lawrence is as good as everyone pretends he is, here's my like thing with Trevor Lawrence. Everyone is pretending like he's the clear 101, and he is by far the best quarterback prospect in this draft, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, we already know where he's going. So you can already talk about Trevor Lawrence with the perspective of his landing spot, which is not what you can't do that with the other 3 quarterbacks, right? So I think it's foolish to assume that, and some people around the NFL or whatever, GMs and stuff, are saying that they like Zach Wilson and Justin Fields better. Like there's a couple teams that have him ranked higher.
That's crazy to me. Yeah. I can't get behind it as much as I love those guys. Like I can't get behind that at all.
I can't get behind it either, but for fantasy purposes, I'm not going to be afraid. I've already kind of battled with this. I'm not going to be afraid to rank Trevor Lawrence not as my 101 if I see one of these other quarterbacks go to a better landing spot, or if one of the running backs goes to like an elite landing spot too.
What I was going to say too, DJ Chark's a free agent next year, and nobody's talking about that at all.
No,
could theoretically the Jaguars just draft a receiver and then give DJ Chark one prove it year? Say, okay, if you don't perform back to 2 years ago, if you perform again like you did last year, you're out the door, and we'll just develop around this guy.
Yeah,
that's true. Chenault as well.
Chark is a good player, but he hasn't shown you anything that's like I got to pay this guy receiver money, like top end receiver money. Like no, he's a above average receiver. Like that's about where his talent level is.
And I think he can get into the good range if he is more consistent. It's just the problem with him, man. He is so inconsistent at this point. It is insane. But we'll catch up on a couple of questions. So we got we clicked at the same time. Here you go.
All right. So Tyler goes, my guys. What's up, Tyler? Nate Ashley says Josh Jacobs outlook in Dynasty. I believe we've talked about this already. I think last week we talked about this, but I think Josh Jacobs is one of the more undervalued Dynasty running backs right now. I think I honestly, for the Fantasy Scouts, the site that I contribute to, I think I'm going to write an article about like guys that are in the dumpster of Dynasty players' minds. Like they're like forgotten.
Like Zeke Elliott?
Like Tua Tagovailoa, for example. Like no one wants anything to do with them. Like these are the guys that I'm probably just going to put into perspective, not necessarily buy them or whatever, but just say whose value is like the lowest it's going to be right now. And guys like Josh Jacobs, for example, I think his value right now is the lowest it's going to be because I still think he's one of the better pure runners in the league. And pending his suspension, whatever happens with that, if nothing happens with that, or if it's like a 1 or 2 game suspension, I honestly think he's going to be a super undervalued Dynasty running back. And this is a dude that's like 23, 24 years old.
You could probably get him right now for like the 108. Someone might give you Josh Jacobs right now for the 108, and I would do that any day.
I would easily take Josh Jacobs over Javonte Williams any day of the week.
Yeah. So, I mean, what people don't understand is the reason why you hold these picks and hold these picks and hold these picks is because to a certain point in the offseason, there are going to be owners desperate enough once more news comes out, once more things that they don't like, not ideal, come out, that are going to panic and flip these assets really for an undervalued pick, if you will. So like Josh Jacobs last year, going in like during the season, you probably would have said, oh yeah, he's probably worth like the 104 or 105 or something like that. I can bet you right now the Josh Jacobs owner would probably sell that for about the 108 or 109.
I bet you could honestly even get him a little bit cheaper than that. I think you could get him for like the 110, 111, 112.
Which would be like a banger.
Because at that point in the draft, you're probably not even getting Javonte Williams. So you're looking at, I don't know, Jaylen Waddle or Rashod Bateman or maybe Kyle Pitts or something for Josh Jacobs. And I would take Josh Jacobs over those guys easily.
Yeah. So Yael says, "What up, fellas? What up?" And I see the little drink beside as well.
Yeah.
So Nate says, "I'm a win now team in Dynasty Standard. I have Zeke. Should I look to move him? And if so, okay. So if you're a win now team, do not sell Zeke, because I am telling you right now, the value that you put him out for on the market is not even going to be close to the value that you would need to part with him for a win now team. Like if you're rebuilding, I'd understand it, but for a win now."
The rebuilding and win now thing is really like, it's really skewed. Like I saw someone on Twitter earlier today being like, "Oh, would you sell Chris Godwin for the 103?" And I saw someone like, "Yeah, if you're a win now team, I would keep Chris Godwin. If you're a rebuilding team, I'd take the 103." It's like, Chris Godwin's 24 years old and he already has like 1,000-yard receiving season under his belt. Like, why is a win now team a rebuilding team selling Chris Godwin?
The reason why I'm saying this is because Zeke's outlook. Oh, he's a 26-year-old running back. He's coming off his worst season. His value is most likely only going to go down from here. However, if you are in a win now position and you can have that top 6, top 7 type production at the position, at least for the next 2 years when he's under contract, I would value that heavily over even a rookie.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know if his value is going to go down from here, because I think this time next year, he's going to be more valuable than he is now, personally. Yeah. And that's not even because I think he's going to have some spectacular season with Dallas. I think even if he has like a slightly better season than this year, his value will still be better, because I think everyone just kind of is uncertain about like if Prescott stays there and all that stuff. And like if Dak has a new contract, which I assume he will by next year, then that outlook is kind of, it's in the rear view. Like no one's worried about that. All you really are thinking at that point is like, how much longer is this guy going to be a productive runner in the NFL? And at that point, like the risk baked in is it's not worth selling the guy even this offseason or next offseason, because you're probably going to get 2 to 3 more really productive years out of Zeke. And I think, honestly, whether you're a rebuilding team or a win now team, I'm not sure I'm looking to move Zeke, because I just don't think people are going to offer you probably the value that he can give you over the next couple of years.
Dude, at this point in the offseason, if you were to put Zeke on the market, I'm telling you right now, like there are going to be people just sending disrespectful type offers to you. People are going to be sending like the 111 for Zeke and saying, "Oh, Zeke's time as a top back is under. Have you just see what he did last year? Yada, 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 4 yards per carry."
I would probably need a top 8 pick to get rid of him.
Easily. I would need like a top 6 or 7 pick, to be quite honest, bro.
Yeah,
like,
I'd actually probably be assured that I get one of those quarterbacks or the running backs is probably what I would need. Maybe a Jamar Chase or something would be worth it.
And that's if I'm rebuilding. If I'm contending, I would just keep Zeke.
I would just keep him.
Run it. So, hopefully that helped you, Nate. Let's get into Lamar's question. That's actually a pretty interesting one. So we got Josh Jacobs or A.J. Dillon and Deontay Johnson. At this point, the Packers are really a question mark as to what they're going to be doing, because for whatever reason, they've been clearing cap space to try to re-sign Aaron Jones. And what I've been hearing is that Corey Linsley is hitting the free agency market, which why would I still don't understand this from a team building perspective. You drafted a 2nd-round running back last year, and you're picking the all-pro running back over the all-pro center.
Not even an all-pro running back, but yeah, literally first-team all-pro center this past year, and you're not going to pay him. Seems pretty odd to me, because he's going to get a lot of money on the open market, Corey Linsley. If he hits the open market, he's going to get a crazy amount. So, I mean, with the A.J. Dillon situation, I think his value is the highest it's ever going to be, personally. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because I think the salary cap thing is a little bit overstated how much salary cap restrictions actually apply in the NFL, because we've already seen this from a couple teams now. Drew Brees restructured his contract already, and it like cleared like $20 million in cap space. Like, it's really easy to open up cap space in the NFL. All you really have to do is go up to, if you're the Packers, be like, "Hey, David Bakhtiari, you're going to be around for a couple of years. How about we give you your $17 million against the cap next year as a signing bonus right now? And then you're only like $9 million or $8 million on the cap for the next year." And it's kind of really easy to fudge the book, so to speak.
What I've gathered from it is to open up cap space in the intermediate. Basically what you do is, again, you assign it to signing bonus. And what that does is that only just increases the dead cap number. So if you were to release someone, or they got hurt, or something,
you only do that with players that you're never going to release. Like, for example, Tampa Bay always does it with Ali Marpet and Mike Evans and Lavonte David. It's the 3 guys they always do it with, because those are like their Ring of Honor type players. Like, they're not getting rid of them.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you're the Cowboys, you just do it after you pay with Dak Prescott, and then you do it with him.
Yeah, so I actually do think Aaron Jones is probably going to be back in Green Bay. So I would take the Josh Jacobs side of this to get back to the trade. And it's nothing against Deontay Johnson. I think he's a solid asset, but I honestly think Deontay Johnson is one of those receivers that's kind of a dime a dozen in Dynasty. Yeah. Like there's just so many receivers just like Deontay Johnson with a similar kind of outlook and hope for his future that I'm really not valuing those guys overly high. Like, because there's just so many of them, right? There's like T. Higgins, there's all these like random young receivers that are entering their primes.
There's probably like 20 or 25 like fringe wide receiver 2-3 types right now, which is insane to think about because if you do the math, well, wide receiver 2 starts at 13, meaning there's 33 or 38 receivers that you can conceivably have in your wide receiver 2 range. Like if someone were to tell me that, I don't know, as you mentioned, like T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, like Deebo Samuel, like all those type of guys were in their top 24, I wouldn't bat an eye because let's be honest, the margin of error between the guys, the margin of production between these guys is so minimal to the point that you can make the argument. So
yeah, as Deontay Johnson does have the like kind of quarterback questions. I guess so does Josh Jacobs, I guess, but I'm really not that concerned. We've already had reports. We'll just go to the next question because it kind of is along this lines. But we've already had reports that the Raiders have like steadfast, like we're not moving Derek Carr. I guess the Colts had called about Derek Carr before they called about Carson Wentz, and it looks like they're going to roll with Derek Carr. So, which is like I don't understand from an NFL like general manager or team building or franchise perspective or whatever. But like apparently the asking price for Carr was around what Stafford got. And it's just like I'm trying to wrap my head around how NFL offices value Carr. I mean, I suppose there's less question marks about Derek Carr. There's less of an injury history. He's a bit younger. There's also less talent, though. There's less talent for sure, but Matthew Stafford is coming off of like 3 straight seasons where he's had to deal with a back injury at the end of the year or whatever, right? So I think Derek Carr is a fine quarterback. I've always kind of thought he was a little underrated, to be honest. So I think the way that the Raiders offense operates, they need to be healthier, first of all, because their offense specifically was very banged up last year. I'm sure you know this as a Raiders fan. Jacobs missed a couple games. Most of their line was injured, was like just decimated the whole year. Their first round pick, Henry Ruggs, was dealing with injuries. Just a lot of injuries up and down the team outside of really Darren Waller on their offense was like the only guy that didn't get injured. So if they're maybe able to go after a free agent wide receiver, which I believe they're going to, and there's reports that they're already going after Juju Smith-Schuster or something like that. So I would imagine the Raiders add some bigger named free agent on their offense, which should help Derek Carr, which should help Henry Ruggs, should help Darren Waller, should help Josh Jacobs, and just make the offense better in general. So I think Josh Jacobs is a guy that I'm going to be on the buy side of things for this offseason because I do think he's going to be really undervalued.
From a team building or wide receiver room building perspective, Juju's actually a really good fit for what they already have there. Sorry.
Kind of like a better version of what you had last year with Aguilar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think he's going to run the slot for you. I think he's going to be that intermediate target for you. And again, you have Henry Ruggs on the outside. You got Darren Waller dominating in the interior. Like, I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I do too.
What are my boys doing in the offseason? Let's hear some predictions. The Patriots. Well, let me check their cap right now and see what's kind of going on there.
I honestly couldn't tell you at all what the Patriots are going to do. I think they're going to do some really low-key move, like after Jimmy G gets cut or traded from the Niners, go after him.
That's a guarantee. So the Patriots have nearly $70 million in cap.
Now a free agent, and Carson Wentz is now in Indianapolis. I could see them going after Jacoby Brissett and just rolling with him for a year. I think they're going to go after a quarterback in 2022 personally, and whatever ends up happening with that quarterback draft class, whether Spencer Rattler's like the quarterback one or whoever else, Sam Howell, like I don't even know. Maybe someone emerges like Zach Wilson or Joe Burrow these past couple of years. I think the Patriots are probably just going to go with like a low key move at quarterback and then probably try and build up their offense around that quarterback. Maybe they draft a receiver in the first round with that 15th overall pick. Maybe they draft Kyle Pitts with that pick. Maybe they draft Mac Jones with that pick. Who the hell knows?
I'm currently looking at their cap situation, so I can share the screen so the viewers can kind of see what's going on. they don't have a single bad contract on their roster right now, which is insane. I mean, even like their top players, if they ended up, like say Stephon Gilmore, like tore his ACL next year, it's $7 million dead cap. You can completely look at that. Or Dante Hightower, 2.5 dead cap. Like the way that they actually structured their contracts financially is pretty amazing once you compare it to like the Saints and the Eagles and teams like that. So I mean, they could go a number of ways. And keep in mind, this is a team that won, 6-7 games, despite not having a quarterback, despite missing so many people on defense this year who opted out of the season.
Despite having probably the worst offensive core of like weapons in the league too, let alone a bad quarterback.
I honestly think that they can return to being a fringe type playoff team, especially in the 17 format for next year. If they, could this be a sneaker team that goes after like an Allen Robinson?
Oh yeah, it definitely could. I think they could be. They have money. Like they definitely have money to go after.
$70 million.
I think honestly, I mean, this kind of is a weird fit because of like what this guy is off the field, but I think Juju Smith-Schuster makes a lot of sense for this team too.
Juju makes sense. Like if they want to go after Kenny Galladay on the outside to kind of complement what they got with Julian Edelman in the slot.
I think they really need to, like we predicted them Corey Davis in our wide receiver predictions. I can see that a lot too. Yeah. I think they just need to add pieces to their offense in general. Like I think your running back core is probably fine. You need to get yourself a tight end. Kyle Pitts makes a ton of sense if he's there at 15. And I just finished watching him yesterday. That guy is an absolute freak of nature.
Yeah, dude, he's the
best tight end prospect I've ever seen.
Yeah, dude, I've talked about this a couple times. I basically said, I'm like, if he was considered a receiver in this class, he would be my wide receiver 2 behind Devonta Smith, which is just insane to think. I mean,
he has the highest grade out of any offensive player in this draft for me.
Over Lawrence?
Sorry, he has the same grade as Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, so what, 1030?
1030. Yeah. So they're the 2 best players in the draft that I've seen. But obviously positional value, Kyle Pitts. We can't, I know the popular narrative is to give him to like a team that already has a tight end, right? Like I've seen him mock to the Eagles before and people are like, yeah, that's a great fit. They can run a lot of 2 tight ends and stuff. It's like, yeah, but we're trusting a coaching staff to do that way more. Like the coaching staff that ran 2 tight ends is no longer there in Philadelphia. Like the new coaching staff coming in would have to adopt that. And I've seen that with the Niners as well, which I mean, in that situation, it's a little easier to trust a coaching staff like Kyle Shanahan's. But I honestly just think it's better to go to a team that needs a starting tight end than it does to go to a team that needs to use Kyle Pitts as like a weapon or whatever.
And that's why I've said multiple times, okay, as good as I find Slater to be, like he's a really good offensive lineman. Don't get me wrong.
Cincinnati makes total sense.
If Sewell is gone and I'm Cincinnati, I'm not passing on Kyle Pitts because I'm thinking of the fit. First of all, we've seen
is that the highest a tight end's been drafted if he goes 5? When did Vernon Davis go?
I think Vernon Davis went 6. So let me check that real quick.
That's pretty crazy. If Pitts goes 5th overall, that'll be definitely one of the higher picks of the tight end. I think like off the top of my head, I think Mike Ditko is a top 5 pick.
Vernon Davis went 6th overall. So yeah.
So yeah, probably definitely be the highest pick for a tight end in the last 20 years.
Hawkinson went 7th a couple years ago?
I think he went 8th and so did Ebron.
8th, yeah. Which is crazy, same team.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I still I'll just quickly mention I still never understood why they picked Ebron in the top 10 because like I never thought he was like that crazy of a tight end prospect.
Yeah, it was a little weird. I actually really liked Ebron too. I remember we picked Mike Evans in that draft, but I really liked Ebron. I was like, I don't think they're gonna pick him, but because I don't even remember who we had at the time, but we had a tight end that was like solid. And I was like, yeah, we need like receiving help, obviously. And I was like, I guess I wouldn't be opposed if they picked Ebron, but I wanted Mike Evans or Odell Beckham. Those were the 2 guys I wanted.
Oh, so you had Odell that high at that time, eh?
Oh, I loved Odell Beckham that year. I mean, I wasn't like, I didn't really know what I was talking about. I was like in high school. Yeah. I just liked them play. I just liked them as players because I watched a lot of SEC football and they're both SEC players. And
it was the same thing with me. Like you kind of just create like these random narratives because like in high school, you don't really like watch them in fully.
Like, oh, he's got spectacular. Like Odell was just making spectacular catches. So I thought he was dope and he played for LSU and I just loved their like team.
Yeah. Like, bro, I thought like Sammy Watkins was a little overrated just because everybody only talked about him as wide receiver 1. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be different. Mike Evans is my wide receiver 1. I literally remember saying that I was 14 years old. And then like now that looks genius, but there was literally like Tyler, like no process behind it. Like it was just
literally. Yeah. So Reich plus Wentz. Can the Colts compete with the Chiefs? The only way this can happen is if Wentz is the 2017. That's the only way this can happen. And I'm not sure that Wentz exists anymore personally, but
his mechanics are so sloppy. And I think mentally
they're more destined to be a second tier AFC team behind the likes of the Chiefs and the Bills. And honestly, even the Ravens, I would take over the Colts. I think they're probably like the 4th or 5th best team in the AFC right now with Carson Wentz.
I'm trying to think what other teams like are in that mix, like the Titans.
Yeah, I would say that's probably like that division race is going to be interesting. Those two teams are going to be pretty comparable in terms of how good of teams they are, probably. So again, I do think there's a range of outcomes though, right? There's a range of outcomes where this crash and burns, like this move is terrible and like they suck and they win like 8 games or something like that. And Carson Wentz looks like crap and they play Jacob Eason in the second half of the season. Oh, God. And there's also a range of outcomes where Carson Wentz is that 2017 version and they're like Frank Reich wins coach of the year. They go 13-3. Carson Wentz is like an MVP candidate. Maybe they go to the AFC championship or something. Like there's definitely that kind of reality for this team because the team is really good around him and the coaching staff knows him and knows what he does best. So it could work out really well. I'm more so just going to lean in the middle ground of things, but I will admit there is a ceiling and floor type of outcome for them.
And that's why I'll never understand when we know in advance, like 2-3 months in advance, that quarterbacks are moving. Why are people not actively trying to trade them before the move and then flipping them after the move? Because let's be honest here. If you were to try to get Carson Wentz a couple months ago, you probably could have got him for about a mid-second round pick because people were off of him. Jalen Hurts just took the job. Carson Wentz got benched. Carson Wentz sucks. I'm telling you right now, as soon as that
could have gotten him for nothing.
Yeah, as soon as that Colts move got announced, his value easily, you could probably get a late first minimum for him.
I don't know about a late first because he's still Carson Wentz and he's got a lot of like negative like
you can convince someone who doesn't have a quarterback though.
You could have definitely got him for cheaper than that before.
Yeah, easily. So it's just like understanding value again, like our name's the fantasy stock exchange for a reason. Capitalizing on undervalued stocks and being able to flip them for a profit is basically what we're doing here. So
yeah, and the whole free agency process is going to see a lot of dips in value. And I think Aaron Jones is a guy right now that is just criminally undervalued. Whether he stays with Green Bay or not, this is still a 24-year-old running back that is super talented. Like whether he goes to the Falcons or stays with the Packers, he's still going to be very good for fantasy next year. And it's really, I don't see too much of a difference unless he goes to like a team that doesn't need a running back at all, which I don't know why you'd be paying a running back if that's the case. I don't see too big of a difference between where I would value Aaron Jones next year. If he was on Green Bay, I would probably have him as like a top 8 running back or whatever. Yeah. And if he was on like the Jets, he'd still probably be a top 15 running back for fantasy.
And I've seen multiple times, like people are like showing like the startup drafts and he's going in like the early 5th round. And I'm just like,
which is why, and I got him late last year too.
Man, it's crazy to think about. So we'll get into a couple questions before we get on too much of a tangent and we clicked at the same time. Yeah. As good as Kyle Pitts is, I'm not taking him over the workhorse that I think Najee Harris is going to be even year 1. I think Najee Harris can be a top 10.
The highest you would take Kyle Pitts? Because now that I've actually fully watched Kyle Pitts, I can truly appreciate how good he is.
107?
I think the absolute highest I could take Kyle Pitts is after the top 2 receivers.
I'd maybe 107 in the right landing spot is what I'm thinking.
Okay, so what's the right landing spot? What's the best landing spot?
Bengals would be a nice one for me. I'm trying to think teams around that top 15 area. Like the Patriots, if they get a quarterback.
To the Giants.
I don't hate it, but it would be kind of weird because I don't know what they're going to do in their offense because they basically, like, I don't want to say Evan Ingram's similar to Pitts because Pitts is just superior in basically every aspect. Yeah, but I mean, like, they have 2 moves tight ends who are athletic and kind of can high point the ball.
Either way, the ideal landing spot, whatever it is, if Kyle Pitts lands there, then I could see him taking, see anyone taking him as high as 105, 106, 107, just because of how much better he is at his position than probably anyone in the last couple drafts. Like if him, TJ Hawkinson, Noah Fant, whoever else, like whatever other tight end class you want to talk about are all stacked up together, I'm going to guarantee myself, you, most highly decorated NFL scouts and media members will all take Kyle Pitts 10 times out of 10. So just the way this guy operates, it's just so superior to everyone at his position that I think the way our NFL coaching staff is going to look at him, he has the best chance to be the first rookie tight end to break out just because of like what he offers and how refined he is already. Plus, if he lands in a good spot, obviously it lends itself to that too.
Dude, I love Pitts, and I was kind of thinking this in my head. I don't personally play in a decent amount of tight end premiums. I think I'm in one dynasty league that has it, but in a tight end premium league, I wouldn't be shocked if he was the 3rd overall pick, the 2nd overall pick, depending on the quarterback landing spots. Yeah, depending on the landing spots again, and that's in a tight end premium.
I'm sure. I'm sure if the other rookie, like the running backs, don't land in like the most ideal landing spots or whatever, there'd be people that would definitely take Pitts over those guys. And I think honestly, like when you look at just like the tight end landscape now, like including rookies, like how many tight ends are you really taking over Pitts in Dynasty?
And I know typically, again, I mentioned my formula for breakout tight ends like multiple times, my 3 steps. Man, I wouldn't be at all shocked if Kyle Pitts, again, as you mentioned, broke out as a first-year player.
Yep.
And he's a guy, like, I know this is way, way early in the offseason, but if his value in redraft is anywhere close to like the 10th round.
Yeah, if he goes what TJ Hawkinson did when he was a rookie, which, I mean, he's probably going to get similar draft capital, pretty high college pedigree, like Mackey Award winner or whatever. Like, I do think that he's not going to be a 6th round pick and redraft. He just won't. He's a rookie tight end. So if he's a 10th round pick or 11th round pick for the Bengals or something like that, I would definitely be willing to take a swing on him at that point. He's definitely like would fit the bill of like one of those late round tight ends that you want to be targeting in your draft that we talked about all summer last year.
For sure. So we'll get into a couple more. By the way, tight end is the position that you just swing and you look for the home run.
You keep swinging too.
Yeah, you keep swinging and keep swinging. You look for the home run because even if you hit a double, like, okay, what's he going to do? He's going to give you 2 more points per game ahead of the guy that you quote unquote missed on or busted on you. I would rather go for that positional advantage. If you can get, like, for example, Darren Waller was a league winner this year, Mark Andrews the year before. If you can get that type of elite difference maker without having to spend that premium draft capital, the competitive edge that you have on your league mates is ridiculous.
Yeah, so, and I got in our listener league, I got Waller in the 6th round, and I was like, "Yo,
I know you
Waller is my tight end 3 too." So I was like, "Like Waller is my tight end 3, and I'm going to get him after Andrews and after I don't remember who the other tight end was, Ertz." Yeah, I was like, "I'm going to get him after those 2 guys. Like I'm taking him every time in that kind of situation." So this message made me laugh when I read this.
And I remember, I'll read it through. I'm just going to say quickly, I remember. We literally made a video on this, the most undervalued player by round. And when we mentioned Darren Waller, like this is a guy that was going 2 rounds after the other 2 tight ends. And we both liked him ahead of those guys. Mm-hmm. Like, I never understood the aspect of, they're bringing in these tertiary weapons. It's going to fully affect. No, it's not going to affect Waller because Waller is the alpha weapon in that offense. Like, that's what people have to realize. Like, okay, this team made moves. So what? They signed this guy long term. They've already said they want to build around him in terms of the receiving core. Like, this is going to be the guy. Yeah. So I'm interested to see who becomes that guy this offseason. But let's get into Ray's message here because I've just been on a tangent. Hey, boys, spend some time still watching. Thumbs up every new video. Yeah, if you're watching, as always, make sure you go like and thumbs up as Ray. Be that alpha dog.
And Ray, make sure you comment on those videos too, because that actually helps us out in terms of the quote unquote YouTube algorithm, as Danny would say. That actually helps us out the most is comments. So if you guys, maybe you're not even going to watch the full video, just comment and say what you had for breakfast that day, whatever you want to comment. It literally helps us out so much. So if you want to go back and do that on our prospect battles videos, or go watch those too, because those were a lot of fun to make. And I think they were really informative. And you 2 are the cheddar in a perfectly crisped up grilled cheese sandwich was the part that made me laugh. So appreciate that. Not really sure what that means, but I think it's a compliment. So
it's blessed. Oh, grilled cheese hits different, especially when you get that prime cheddar, eh?
Yeah.
But, I appreciate that, Ray. What do we do with T. Higgins you hold? Like, or if people are thinking about that, the Bengals.
It's Jamar Chase. Like the big receivers, the answer is Jamar Chase. Everyone thinks they're going to take Jamar Chase because he was Joe Burrow's teammate. And while Joe Burrow might go to the front office and be like, "Hey, take Jamar Chase. I need another weapon in my offense." When have the Bengals front office ever done anything for their players? Like, I don't think that's very likely that they just take Jamar Chase. And I think Joe Burrow is more likely to go to his front office and be like, "Hey, I don't want to die next year. Get me an offensive tackle."
Or if you're gonna go offensive weapon, I'll just take.
I would
that
go Pitts over Chase straight up. One, I think he's a better prospect, regardless of position, and two, I think it's a bigger need because Higgins showed himself as like a true number one last year. AJ Green is gone this next year. You could replace him later in the draft or in free agency, and you already have Tyler Boyd still too.
Auden Tate's still a good third receiver in my opinion as well.
Yeah.
So I agree. I don't want that dancing clown at all. Yeah, Jimmy G is going to be a Patriot. For anybody watching, okay, we mentioned it in the quarterback landing spots video, but the 49ers have absolutely no commitment financially to Jimmy Garoppolo. He's going to be a casualty this offseason. Now, where is he going to go? He's just going to go to the single best place that he really played in his career. I mean, I still remember he had a 4-game stretch in 2017, where people were saying, "Oh, yo, is he better than Brady?" Question mark.
Yeah.
You remember that? Like those narratives that were going around?
Oh, yeah. That at the end of when he first got to the Niners, what he did for them, they were like, I remember he made like the top 100 players list or whatever they did.
Sickening. Over Dak.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah. No, they ranked him over Dak last year, and I was just laughing. I'm like, bro, you're going to have Dak at like 53 and Garoppolo at 44. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing now?
Yeah.
But would you
I appreciate the super chat.
I didn't even see that.
Bags. Yeah.
Appreciate that, money bags. Yeah, my bad. I just completely click. But appreciate that. Yeah. Here. Sorry. Would you trade Allaire and Rojo for James Robinson?
Absolutely not. You guys know my thoughts on James Robinson. I would rather have Clyde Edwards-Helaire straight up than James Robinson, let alone with Ronald Jones involved in that. I actually think I have Ronald Jones pretty close in my rankings to James Robinson too. James Robinson to me is, and I've heard the theory of like, if you own a business, you have a really cheap, like really well-performing player, why would you try and replace him because he's really cheap? Yeah, that makes sense in theory, but I think we're going to add somebody. And the thing with James Robinson that made James Robinson is the fact that he had he had the best workload in the league pretty much. So any kind of dent to his production will likely downgrade him from like a mid RB1 like he was this past year to a back end RB2 or a mid RB2, right? So yeah, his efficiency could go up, I suppose, but I didn't really see that great of a player. I don't think he's that talented personally. That's why he went undrafted. All of his advanced metrics and all that kind of stuff don't really indicate that he's that talented. So I kind of like James Robinson, I guess, as like a win now piece in a dynasty league. But for his price taking him in second, third round dynasty startups, like not a chance I would take him that high.
Not to mention, I mean, like, are you giving up anything more than like the 108 for him in a trade? If you wanted to,
I would rather have Devontae Williams than him straight up.
So you basically value James Robinson around the 110, 111. If he's going in the second or third round startup, that basically indicates that his value is around the 103 by the community.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, like Bunk Bed Breakdowns guys did a dynasty startup mock draft, and James Robinson went into like mid-second round, like before anyone picked Najee Harris or
That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me.
I was like, not a chance. Like I would take those. Like those guys are going to get like borderline first round draft capital.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we got into Ray. By the way, what are your standards on startup dynasty? I want to join a league, all 4 seasons, all cash up front, at least $50 per season. Can't trade more than 1 season ahead future draft picks. Yeah, so that's basically going to be the settings for what we're going to be doing for the FSC Dynasty League. Now, you guys have been seeing the banner on or at the bottom of the screen, all live stream, and in our past recent videos. Basically, to enter this Dynasty League, you go pre-order our draft guide currently on our website. I can actually link it in the comments, pin it.
And it's coming soon too. It's coming March 1st. There's going to be a lot of information in there. I'm going to have all my player cards from the scouting process that I've done for fantasy. We have write-ups on like pretty much every player in this draft. We're going to have our dynasty rankings, rookie rankings. Me and Tyler are going to have video series talking about what metrics matter and how to watch film, all of that stuff. We have a bunch of research notes and databases specific to the draft classes at each position and the stats that matter for those that are only available usually using paid resources, but we're going to share those with you guys. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff packed into that draft guide, and it's launching March 1st, and there's still plenty of spots in our listener dynasty startup. So if you guys pre-order that before March 1st, then you might get automatic entry into it, depending on how many pre-orders we get. We'll either draw names or we'll just have automatic entry. Right now, it's just going to be automatic entry because we don't currently have enough pre-orders to to be a drawing name system. So if you want an advantage, go ahead and do that as soon as you can.
For sure. I mean, you guys watch our videos, you guys enjoy the content. Make sure you get this opportunity to be in a league with us. Make sure you get the opportunity to hear my smack talk in the group chats, hear Bush's takes on James Robinson as you draft him, everything like that, all packed into one. Get that draft guide, you get the value of the draft guide and the chance to be in a league with us for life. This is a dynasty league, y'all. We're in it for the long term. We're in it to win it. So don't miss that opportunity. I'll put the link in the comments so you guys can access that real quickly.
Facts. Okay, so Ray says, again, to avoid wins, super focused strategy because, come on, stick to redraft bums. Am I right? Okay. Okay, so he's talking about with his rules that he discussed. He said the more than one season ahead of future draft picks. I think that's definitely a smart rule to have because a lot of people will just go into a redraft or a dynasty startup, trade all their future picks away, and then leave the league if they don't win the league in the first season. So yeah, definitely. And I also think too, the best way to combat that is to take half of the next year's buy-in up front as well. So that if it's a $50 per season league, you take $75 up front. So that way they have a $25 deposit for the next season. And then you continuously do that each year because people otherwise will try and leave the league. And maybe the incentive for them to stay in the league another year is to have that half of the next year paid already. Yeah, for sure. Here, sorry, I'll get it more. Oh, I put it on my wrong account, but you guys can see the comment. All right. It says for redraft leagues, what rounds will the top 5 rookies go? So I'd imagine that Superflex or one QB running backs, Etienne and Harris will be probably top 3 round picks in redraft leagues. And I would smash. They're going to be top. And I would say Javonte Williams as well will probably be in the neighborhood of where Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins were going this past season. So like 4th, 5th, maybe 6th round, depending on where he lands. I think those guys will definitely be the highest redraft picks just because they're running backs. And then if you play in a super flex redraft league, I would imagine that all 4 of the quarterbacks are going to be, I don't know, top 15, 20 draft picks in redraft leagues just because of all 4 of their abilities to run the ball. And if any of them land in really good spots where they're going to start right away too, they should be pretty high picks as well. I think the receivers are always a risk because rookie receivers, sometimes they don't do that well. And we already talked about Pitts too. He'll probably be like a 10th round pick. I'd imagine Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith are more in that 8th, 9th, 10th round range as well. That's usually where receivers go, where we saw Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb and Henry Ruggs go this past year is probably where the receivers go in this class, whoever the highest picked receivers are. By the way, did you know this stat, speaking of rookie receivers from last year? Despite, I'm going to sound like a homer because I'm talking about a Cowboy, but despite playing with backup quarterbacks for 75% of the season, CeeDee Lamb had the most catches in NFL history by a 21-year-old rookie. He had 74 receptions in his rookie season as a 21-year-old. Yeah, I mean, his average depth of target was like 7 yards. I mean, he had 935 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. He definitely had a very solid rookie season. I'm pumped, man. And that prediction I made last offseason, Cowboys 3 1K receivers, even without Dak Prescott, you had Amari Cooper at 1,100. You have CeeDee Lamb nearly 1,000, and Michael Gallup had 850. So the prediction wasn't far off, man. True. Anyways, let's get into some questions before I go homer. For redraft, okay, we went through that. And I fully agree with that. You definitely got to make some type of incentive for people to stay in the league. Otherwise, they're just gonna trade everything for their future in the first year, try to win the league, and if they don't, they say, "Okay, so see you later." Orphan team. Pretty much. For sure, boys. You two, in my opinion, top 3 fantasy content, no question. Appreciate that, Ray. Top 3, and we ain't 2 or 3, right? Yeah, there you go. When's this dynasty draft going to be, you think? Probably right around or after my birthday. So we're hoping to have the league who's in it by the time March 1st launches. Obviously, if we need to fill some more league spots, then we'll extend the how to get into the league part of the draft guide, maybe like the first week or 2 that the draft guide's out. Maybe we fill the league by then. And then we can start the league whenever that's finished, really, and maybe wait until free agency's over and then start it, maybe like the actual startup draft itself. In early April before the NFL draft. For sure. I can say that because trust me, I watch it all. Appreciate that, Ray.
Love seeing it.
Watch all of our content or all fantasy content in general.
Dude, Ray is a baller. He watches any video that shows up on the YouTube feed, clicks that like button, smashes the subscribe. Ray is the true baller. So appreciate that, Ray. So we got David here actually with some advice. So 10 team half PPR dynasty. Fulgham just got dropped. Any of the following worth a drop for him? Carry on, Geis, OJ Howard. I would drop this yesterday. Yeah, I would have dropped him yesterday. Yeah,
OJ Howard is going to be good next year. I'm saying it right now. He was a guy that I thought was like a deep sleeper this season. He looked fantastic the first couple games that he played before he tore his Achilles. Now, obviously, that's a terrible injury to come back from, but OJ Howard's a young player. He's like 24, 25 years old. So he should be all right. And it did happen like week 3 of the season. So we saw Emmanuel Sanders a couple of years ago come back from a torn Achilles at like 32.
Yep.
So I think OJ Howard should be okay. I think for him, it's always been a mental thing, like why he hasn't broken out. It's always been like he couldn't pick up the playbook or whatever the case is. He's had, this will be his 3rd year in the same system with the same coach, and now his 2nd year with the same quarterback, where everybody in the offense already knows the system very well. So OJ Howard to me is a guy that could be like in that Dallas Goedert like kind of range where he was this past year, where he was like a back end tight end 1. I could see OJ Howard being that kind of productive this coming season.
Yeah, for sure.
And Gronk's a free agent too. So there's a chance Gronk doesn't come back. He probably will, but Gronk's a free agent and Cameron Brate has a big contract. Maybe they move on from one of those two guys and Howard can increase his playing time.
Agreed. Would you ever consider doing, I don't like
baseball personally. I'm not a big baseball fan. I think if we were to ever like branch out in content to other sports, it would probably be basketball or hockey, mostly basketball, because hockey
definitely hockey too.
Yeah, hockey just isn't that big though. That's the only thing.
I honestly like fantasy hockey is enjoyable.
I think it's enjoyable too, and I'm not really the biggest basketball fan in the world either because I just think the league is a joke and it's run by the players. But fantasy hockey I play personally. I don't play fantasy basketball, but I think fantasy football has and always will be king of fantasy sports. Like it's not even a question which sport is the best for fantasy sports. But I know baseball, for people who enjoy baseball, is probably second in that kind of in fantasy sports, because I honestly think fantasy baseball was the first fantasy sport, was it not?
Yeah, and honestly, the reason why I can't do fantasy baseball is just it's literally like not even just every day setting your lineup, but like sometimes there's like 2 games from the same team in the same day.
Yeah, I just don't really like the sport personally.
I'll never understand this. They'll like play one team at noon, and then they'll play them again, flipped fields at like 7, and it's like how? Like, first of all, how do you play a full whatever like 2.5 hour game?
That's how you know your sport isn't that demanding on your body. If you're already like able to play like a couple hours later.
Yeah, that's insane to me. And it's like, for example, like they'll literally like it'll be travel too. So like they'll literally play a game in like, let's just say Boston, and then at like 7 hours later they'll have a game scheduled in New York.
Yeah,
and
it's like weird.
What? I don't know. I'll never understand that. But regardless, like I would have the facilities mentally to handle all the transactions, everything like that for baseball.
It'd be wild. The fantasy baseball like I know Fantasy Pros does fantasy baseball, and I honestly just can't follow it. There's so much stuff going on, and all the injuries and stuff that happen like somehow in that sport are they're hard to keep track of.
Yeah, fantasy basketball and hockey, at least I can handle, because like when the games are in advance. You could set your lineup in advance. Most of the time, let's be honest, in fantasy football, you're never clicking the auto set lineup.
No, of course not.
But in hockey and basketball, because there's so many games and because it's daily, like it just saves you so much hassle sometimes to just click that and then have to make the adjustments if you have to afterwards. So like, man, I'll just honestly say it's harder to maintain in the sports where you literally like every single day you have to have maintenance on your lineup. You forget one day, well, guess what? Your best player's on your bench because you forgot to put them in. Like it's crazy to think about that. Whereas like, fantasy football, you say, "Oh, I want to set my lineup every Wednesday." Well, guess what? If you forget on Wednesday, you still have until Sunday
it's ironic
morning.
Too, because I'm sure you're like this too, especially in the leagues that you care the most about.
Yeah.
You only have to set your lineup once a week in fantasy football, but I'm on my fantasy football app more than I am on my fantasy hockey app. It doesn't make any sense because I don't need to be, but I'm like every day I'm like, especially if I have like a tough decision that week, or I have like for example, the week of the playoffs where I had to decide to start between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Ronald Jones or whatever the sit decision that I had was, or no, it was Watson and Brady. That was the big one that I had. I was like, who do I start, Watson or Brady? I was on my fantasy football app like 7 times a day.
And I can tell you right now, it's like me too. Like if I consider like picking up like a low key free agent to like flex for a week, like say I have bye weeks, like I'm like eyeing this guy on my app. I'm like, is he gonna have a good game or is he not? Is he gonna have a good game or is he not? And I'm like just eyeing it for like a few days. But I can fully.
That's why fantasy football is king. It makes you because I'm sure we would all love if football was on every like 2 days or every day or whatever. But I like the way it is. I like how it's only on once a week.
Agreed. Baseball's the worst. Yep.
Yeah.
Full PPR, Waddle or Bateman. Now, is this in Dynasty or is this in redraft?
I mean, I don't think it matters to me. I think it's Bateman. For full PPR, like your landing spot's going to determine where these guys' target volumes are and all that kind of stuff. But I think the way that they play the game, it lends itself more to Bateman in a full PPR league, because my comparison for Rashod Bateman was Michael Thomas, who is like a full PPR king. Because he's peppered with receptions, whereas Waddle is more of that downfield threat.
Tyreek,
off of big plays and touchdowns and stuff like that. He's probably, and if he does end up being this, he'll be a superstar for fantasy. He's probably not a guy that's going to get 100 catches a season.
Yeah, and I was basically saying this like too. Like for the record, in Dynasty, I'll still take the upside of Waddle, but the way I look at this, it's like comparing who would you rather have, Tyreek Hill or Michael Thomas. The thing is, on service, obviously, like now you would say Tyreek Hill. Well, okay, let's just give Jaylen Waddle the best quarterback in football by the best play caller in football on the best offense in football. Like you can't project something like that for Waddle. I do think in that circumstance, Michael Thomas is a little more, I don't want to say versatile than Tyreek Hill, because obviously like from a skill set point, like Tyreek Hill is just like a much more dynamic player. But I think Michael Thomas fits more offenses in terms of volume than what Tyreek Hill does.
That's the thing with the Tyreek comparisons for anybody, right? Because this is going to continue for the rest of time now, right?
Easily.
Every fast receiver coming into the NFL that has any kind of agility will be compared to Tyreek Hill. It's just going to happen. We had it with Henry Ruggs last year. We have it with Rondale Moore and Jaylen Waddle already this season. I've heard Tyreek Hill comparisons for both of those guys.
Yeah.
And
I don't get that for Rondale Moore.
I honestly just don't want to compare anybody to Tyreek Hill, because I think he's a fucking unicorn. And not only that, but Tyreek Hill is also in, as you mentioned, the best possible situation he could possibly be in. So unless Jaylen Waddle goes to Buffalo, which is like the next closest thing, I guess, to the Chiefs. Like, is that the next closest thing to the Chiefs?
Maybe like in terms of like arm.
Maybe Green Bay, I guess, would be the next closest thing. Yeah, like there's no other Chiefs offense in the NFL. So unless Jaylen Waddle is going to the Chiefs and Tyreek Hill's getting traded, then you can't. There's not really any way to know if he's going to be the next Tyreek Hill, because I think he also needs those accompanying factors of his offense and his quarterback play. And I think Green Bay is probably the closest thing to that.
I got one. Chargers.
Yeah, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Imagine.
Yeah, that'd be pretty wild. But I mean, they have Keenan Allen already.
Yeah, no, but like imagine Justin Herbert's arm with Jaylen Waddle.
Yeah, that would be an awesome fit too. And the Chargers, what did the Chargers pick? 12?
13.
13, yeah. Like if there's 3 OTs off the board, maybe you pick Jaylen Waddle. It would make a lot of sense. They could use Jaylen Waddle. Obviously, they need offensive line help more, but a receiver is a need for them, because Mike Williams will be a free agent after this season. Keenan Allen's getting not older, but he'll probably start declining in the next couple of years. So you might want to get some young talented in there.
For sure. By the way, give me the Cousins side 10 times out of 10 on this one.
Okay, let me read this. Was offered Cousins the 110 and the 410 for Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I might even just take the 110 for Jalen Hurts, to be honest. Or he said he'd send me Winston instead of Cousins if I preferred. Other quarterbacks are Baker, Tua, and I have the 101, so he's going to get Trevor Lawrence, he says later on. I honest to God would smash that 10 times out of 10, because I legitimately do think I would take the 110 over Jalen Hurts, personally.
I agree. And I'm looking at it like you're getting Cousins, who's a top 20 quarterback. You're getting the 110, who we went through the rookie mock draft video. You guys can see the top 12 players in this draft are just so much ahead of anybody else. And I mean, the 410 is nothing, but hey, you know what? I guess you get an extra.
And you're going to have Trevor Lawrence too, right? So if your quarterback core is Cousins, Baker, and Trevor Lawrence alone, and you still have Tua as well. But like if that's those three guys are just your quarterback core, you're fine for the whole season with those three guys. And you could even potentially move one of them. And if Tua maybe has like a better offseason or something and you believe in him as your third quarterback. But either way, I think you're in a good situation there. And I would, as much as I like Jameis Winston, his outlook is far less secure than what Kirk Cousins is. So I think I would just go with the guaranteed starter and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, for sure. I'll hear. Yeah, man. I mean,
it honestly took me like 8 to 10 years of like consuming football knowledge to understand the game to the point that I do now. So I'd probably be in my 30s before I could get to that point with baseball. So,
and like, don't get me wrong. Like if it's on, like I can watch it and I have an understanding.
When the Blue Jays are good, I'll watch them in the playoffs, but that's about the extent of my baseball fandom.
The reason why I would say from a content standpoint, we wouldn't be the best is if I'm going to put anything on the internet, and Bush is the same way, if I'm going to put my opinion out, I want to make sure I'm as informed as possible. I'm not just putting it out because I know people are going to watch it.
I want to make sure that people are work too.
Yeah.
Like, creating a draft guide, putting out YouTube videos, editing the videos, making the thumbnail. Like it's a lot of work. And the reason we do it for free, and we'll continue to do it for free until eventually we don't have to do it for free, is because we love this. Like we love football. We love the draft. We love fantasy. We love like everything about football. So it doesn't feel like work to us. It feels like it's playtime or whatever. So, but it would feel like work for me if it was baseball, because I'm not a big enough baseball fan that I would actually enjoy it that much.
For sure. So KM actually like just clarified the 101. So then we got my boy Evan over here, my quarterback back in the day. Who's your wide receiver one? This is actually a video that we released this week. He's got Jamar Chase. I got Devonta Smith. Make sure, like, I'll send it to you in private as well. You can see the full breakdown because we took those boys and we compared them in every single aspect of their games. Talking hands, I'm talking route running, I'm talking separation, I'm talking physicality. We went through it all. Make sure, if you're like Evan, you haven't seen it yet, check our channel because that was an absolute joy to make that video.
And we will have 2 more next week too with Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, the quarterback one kind of category. It's probably going to go in a way that you guys imagine, but we're going to go through the UNC running backs too next week too, between Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, battle for RB3. So, and we're going to continue to do this series for the next couple of weeks until we eventually get into like running back sleepers. And then we'll do a 2-round mock draft, maybe even a 3-round mock draft by then. And we'll go through a bunch of rookies. So Yael says, what's a good dollar amount to invest in fantasy football per year on average, and how many leagues is enough to be in? I honestly am one of those people that likes to be in a couple leagues. I'm not a huge like fan of being in 30 dynasty leagues like some people.
It also depends on what your discretionary income is. Like I'm not just going to say, oh yeah, like you can spend $300, $400 in fantasy if you're like not bringing in that much in terms of discretionary income. Because quite frankly, I don't want to really talk about another person's financial situation. However, me personally, I probably go about $200-300 in fantasy, about give or take a year. Nothing crazy because again, like you're going to see some people on Twitter who, quite frankly, are like
they're degenerates. They throw $2 to $5 grand in fantasy every year. And I'm in like I think I put in like $450 in fantasy this year. I ended up making almost $2,000. So that was like I definitely like I quadrupled my money. So it was a good investment. But
same thing here. Like I won a couple of leagues. Again, I got some winnings with Best Ball and FanDuel and stuff like that. So I've probably put in about $300, $350 and probably got out close to like $1,400. So it's good investment. Like if you're making money on it.
At fantasy, it's a good investment. But I would say it's honestly just whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm always going to be one of those guys that would honestly like to be in as many leagues as I have fingers on one of my hands. I like to limit myself to like 5, maybe 7 leagues at the most, just because I like to enjoy all of them. I know there's some people out there that want to build like a huge portfolio of dynasty leagues, and that's fine too if that's what you like doing. And you want to be in 10 to 15 dynasty leagues and only like maybe 1 or 2 redraft leagues or something like that. I'm just not like that. I'd rather just be in like 2 or 3 dynasty leagues, 2 or 3 redraft leagues.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll get into Jared now. My buddy and I were having a debate. Well, it depends how fast you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, whatever kind of speed you boast, I think Tyreek Hill might beat you backwards, low-key. So Tyreek Hill's freaking nature. He might beat me just doing backflips.
He might beat me doing cartwheels. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yes, Yannick is in fact a degenerate.
Yeah, I love Yannick, man. I'm in what's it, Trade the Public with him, and literally like this guy just sends like 20 trades a day, like just random players.
I'll go and get faded. I'm like kind of in like a weird spot right now because I have like some elite assets, but I also like don't have a lot of depth. So I'm like, yo, I don't know if I want to rebuild or if I want to try and compete this year. So I'm like, yo, just send me trades and I'll just make a decision based on whatever trade I get. And Yannick will send me like 30 trades in my inbox, like all about Chris Godwin or something. Like just one player on my team will just send me like 7 different trades about.
Yeah, no, exactly. Let me check this team right now. Yeah, like the team that I got right now is just like absurdly talented. Like Tannehill, Kamara, Zeke, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Darren Waller, Logan Thomas, and the 2 tight end tight end premium. And then my quarterbacks are, again, as I mentioned, Tannehill, Stafford, and Patrick Mahomes. So like that might just be like a fucking money run for me. Like just a top 2 every single year. And if that's the case, like it's like $100 buy-in. So
yeah, it's hard. Nice. It's hard to leave leagues too, especially because there's this past year and we talked about this. We're like, I kind of want to cut down on some leagues, but like it's hard when your team's good in those leagues. You're like, I don't really want to leave this league. My team is really good. I made the playoffs last year with like all these injuries in one of my leagues. And I'm like, I could easily, like in the league I'm talking about with Yannick, I didn't have Christian McCaffrey or Chris Godwin most of the year. I also lost Raheem Mostert and Austin Eckler most of the year. Like my team is really good in that league. I just like had so many injuries. And I made a kind of a bad trade earlier in the season, but that trade was so bad, dude. My team would have been phenomenal if I didn't trade DK Metcalf, Josh Allen, and the 105 for Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, that's pain.
Yeah.
But yeah, here, let's get into Dawson. He says, ended up with 101 and 103. Should I take Chase 101 and let 102 decide between? So I'm assuming it's a 1.
I'm assuming this is a 1 quarterback league. Otherwise, you'd be taking a quarterback with one of those picks, if not both of them. So
I'd go with whichever running back has the better landing spot at 101, and then whoever ends up following to you between Chase, Smith, Etienne, whatever, then you could decide on the 103 personally.
Yeah, I think 101 you got to go with whatever running back lands in the best spot, because I mean, I guess it depends on your roster a little bit too. If you have really good running backs, maybe you need a receiver, but I think whatever the case is, you're going to get a receiver at 103, right? And it's probably going to be pretty similar in value. And we already talked about this on the Devonta Smith and Jamar Chase show. There's not like an elite landing spot in the top 15 picks that would completely separate one from the other. They're all kind of similar with question marks. Like you have the Dolphins with Tua potentially not being that great. You have the Giants as a potential landing spot. You have like maybe the Bengals. You have like a bunch of landing spots, Detroit and Philadelphia, where they're all kind of the same. There's not like a team that is like the Chiefs that needs a wide receiver that would just instantly walk into like great production. So I think you let the 103 be your receiver pick and then go with whatever running back is best, or whatever one you like better, or whatever one we say has the better landing spot, whatever the case is. I think 101 probably needs to be a running back.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. So Evan says Mac Jones' ideal landing spot. And I mentioned this in the draft guide. It's probably a long shot at this point to happen because, quite frankly, he might go before this. And I'm not even sure if this team is going to take a quarterback, but they're Bush's counterpart. There's Bush's least favorite team in the league. Like, I think Mac Jones on the Saints would just be a perfect fit for what they want to do on offense. Again, kind of similar to what Drew Brees brings. He's accurate in the intermediate game. Doesn't have an absolute howitzer, but can hit the deep portions of the field. He's accurate down the field and doesn't offer great out of structure play. But quite frankly, when you're playing in a Sean Payton system, you don't really need
it. Like Drew Brees has got a Hall of Fame career out of playing in Sean Payton's system without ever making any out of structure plays. So and the NFL, like a lot of times, like we're like, the NFL is going towards a lot of these like mobile quarterbacks and stuff, and then we like 2 minutes later we're like, oh, but can Lamar Jackson stay in the pocket? It's like it ebbs and flows. There's different ways to win in the NFL, and Mac Jones can win in the NFL. He definitely can. The way he plays is a lot like a not like Drew Brees, but I would say it's that mold of player. You're just an accurate passer, passer. He's got some mobility to him. He's not the greatest athlete in the world. So
he's Kirk Cousins, in my opinion.
Yeah,
that's who I comped him to.
And Kirk Cousins can win games in the NFL. And I think New England is probably a spot that makes a lot of sense for Mac Jones. And I actually do think he might go that high. I think we're seeing a lot of people starting to watch him. The NFL media scouts like the Daniel Jeremiahs and the Mel Kipers and stuff are starting to talk about him the way that they talked about Joe Burrow last year, the way that they had a rise in terms of talent and play and that kind of stuff. They're looking at Mac Jones with the perception that he's going to get drafted very highly in the NFL draft, which I wouldn't have probably said a couple months ago. I thought he was more of like a second round quarterback, but the way that the quarterback landscape is around the league, especially, it's demanding that Mac Jones probably is going to be a first round pick, either to Chicago, New Orleans. One of these teams that needs a quarterback is probably going to take him.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And I just took my sweater off because it was getting hot in the house. Hold or sell Lamar. This is the hold of the life. Oh my. Lamar, week 8 or 9 on, was the Lamar we saw last year. Mm-hmm. He got 25 points, I believe, in every single game past week 9. And when we're talking about it, like, people, there's like a stigma around Lamar. Oh, is he ever going to return value in the passing game? Is he ever going to get better? Because quite frankly, and I do agree from an NFL perspective, if he wants to be that franchise guy long term, he's got to work on his outside the numbers throwing ability. But from fantasy, we don't care about those intricacies. We care about overall production. And let me tell you, there's not too many.
There's a chance he could become a really good passer next year if they get an Allen Robinson in their receiving core. Because I'm going to go back to Buffalo. What happened with that? I could see a similar thing happening with Lamar Jackson, just because he's shown the ability to be able to like pass the ball productively in his MVP caliber season, but he still hasn't had an elite receiver on his team. And whether it's Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Kenny Golladay, whoever they get in free agency, or if they go after somebody, I think they'd be very irresponsible not to go heavily after one of those guys. I
think that him and I know it's going to sound biased again, but him and Dak in terms of Superflex Dynasty leagues have been the best values at the quarterback position. Quite frankly, we've seen, because I mean, these guys are like early to mid second round picks, whereas there's going 8-9 quarterbacks in the first round now. Like, I've seen boards where 8-9 quarterbacks.
I've seen boards where Kyler Murray goes 102, and I would much rather have Lamar Jackson for fantasy than Kyler Murray.
Yeah, heck. If we get later on in the offseason and we know that Dak's ankle is like fully recovered, I would take Dak over Kyler as well. I mean, we're just looking at it
probably take Dak over Kyler with the ankle concerns, to be honest.
Like, it's just it's insane to me that people just are so influenced by recency bias. Like, oh, Lamar had a struggle passing year.
Like, Lamar was literally like the 101, 102, 103 last year, and we're already ready to like put him down in the 3rd round. Like, he's going to get a contract extension too. Like, that's going to guarantee his future in Baltimore. They're already working out contract extensions, and this is a player that's still very young that could still improve as a passer and has literally had nobody to throw to his entire career.
And don't get me wrong, as good as Justin Herbert is, I don't understand why people are taking him over those two guys. Like, yes, he had a really good rookie year. Don't get me wrong.
So did Baker Mayfield, though.
But yeah, and guess what? The two quarterbacks that we're talking about, Lamar Jackson and Dak Prescott, on a point per game basis, outperformed him.
Yeah.
Well, because they're older and there's a stigma around.
And they've been better for they've been like elite fantasy quarterbacks for like 3 to 4 years now. So, yeah. So we'll answer a couple more questions and then we'll probably head out of here. So if you guys have any last minute ones, throw them in here. We'll probably head out of here in a couple minutes, but that's pretty high praise, Ray. Not gonna lie. That. That's a show that definitely makes a living doing this. So
definitely.
Yeah. They if you guys, I'm sure you guys have seen,
if you're watching us, you definitely if you're watching
fantasy football business stuff, and they make good money doing it as they reveal in that show. So
yeah,
that's a point that and I'm sure you listened to them back in the day. We were like, I could do that. Like, I have the football knowledge to do that. That's the way I thought about it. Right. And that's why we started this YouTube channel and we started talking about this, is because we strive to be like guys that make a living doing this. And I like, imagine waking up one day and being able to talk about fantasy football for a living. Like, that's my dream in life. So
100%. I mean, the way I'm looking at it too right now, like, got the talent, we got the talent. It's just being able to get the establishment at this point. I mean, quite frankly, those guys, they started off early, and guess what? They're still at the top of the podium when you think of fantasy football content on YouTube, on websites. I mean, their social media brands have grown. Heck, you see Mike Wright, he has like a couple 100,000 followers on Twitter as well. I mean, just being able to establish yourself from a figure in the community. I mean, the fantasy footballers, what they have done over these past few years has been incredible. So, I mean, just even thinking about that possibility in an industry that is just so enjoyable as fantasy football, I mean, it's quite a thought.
This industry, a thing against the fantasy footballers, at least, is the industry now is a lot more saturated than it was when they got in here. So
it's insane.
There's 250,000 people just like me and Danny trying to get into this industry full time on Twitter that start a new Twitter account every single day. Trying to give fantasy football advice. And basically the only way to get to that point of the fantasy footballers is one, branding, marketing, putting out good content. But another part of it is working harder than everyone else too. Because a lot of people just aren't willing to put the work in. Maybe they're willing to put the work in for one season, but then they don't see any return on their investment. And they're kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. You just got to keep grinding, keep building your audience and keep going. And we appreciate you guys that are tuning into this because obviously you're a part of our audience right now.
Yeah. And like, not to mention, aside from like the growth aspect, just seeing the feedback, like Ray right now, for example, seeing that type of feedback, that the research and the effort that we put in is being well appreciated, well absorbed. Heck, every time someone says, thank you, you helped me win my championship, like your advice on, let's just say, the sleepers video got me to draft Antonio Gibson, or this bust video got me to avoid drafting, I don't know, freaking Todd Gurley. Like that, I like seeing that type of feedback. I like seeing that, you know what? This person was thinking of drafting Todd Gurley in the 3rd round. My video swayed them from doing that.
And that's honestly the only way to build an audience in this industry is to get, because there's a reason that your growth, the growth happens in August, September and stuff like that, is because that's when more people are looking for fantasy advice. And if someone listened to you in August, maybe they're more of a casual player and they don't really listen to fantasy football advice. They listen to a couple things you said in August, and then they went on to win their fantasy league. They're going to come back to your videos in December, be like, yo, you guys helped me win my fantasy league. And then maybe they stick around with you in the offseason, get more into fantasy now that they've won a league or whatever. Maybe it was their first championship or something. That's kind of the way that you build loyalty. And I mean, the footballers have been doing this now for so many years that they've just had 6-7 years type of growth where they're winning people fantasy leagues each and every year. And then it just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking.
Dude, I remember back in the day, I was like 14 years old. And like, I started playing fantasy when I was 12, right? So 8 years ago. And I remember I was like just scrolling on my TV, and there's literally a fantasy footballers TV channel.
Yeah.
Like, that was like 5 years ago. And I'm like, wait, what? They're broadcasting it to TV? Like, they were already like getting all that type of influence right off the bat when, quite frankly, nobody in the industry was even thinking about fantasy football on such a stage. I mean, I've said it and I'll say it again. They really encapsulated the fantasy football landscape. Like, nobody 10 years ago was even thinking about, I can profit off of making fantasy football.
No, dude,
content.
90% of people, just like us, that make YouTube channels and make podcasts, they all are using the fantasy footballers as an example because they listen to the fantasy footballers. They hear how they started, like making a podcast about their own league or whatever, their league of record, as they call it.
Yeah.
And they're like, we should do that for our league. And like, they just continue to think that it's going to work. And for some people, it does. It definitely has worked out for creators around the industry. But obviously, some people aren't willing to put the work in and stuff. So let's get through these last couple of questions here. Yep. It's a little fantasy talk there of the industry. What is your most owned player on your championship team in 2020? For me, it was Tannehill, Kamara, and Deontay Johnson. I actually had Stephon Diggs I won 3 championships this year, and I had Stephon Diggs on all 3. So
yeah, I had 2, and I had Kamara on both. So
yeah, I actually beat Kamara in one of them.
Actually, I should have won 3 championships, but I made a bad start sit decision in Scott's tots, and half my team got hurt throughout the year. I was starting one quarterback in a super flex for literally half the year, and I made the championship.
True.
Game, so.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty sure I had Darren Waller in 2 of the 3 leagues that I won too, and I think I also had Justin Herbert in 2 of the 3 leagues that I won. So a lot of late round guys and some values in the mid rounds that I drafted.
For sure. Oh shoot, we clicked at the same time. The quarterback. Yeah, late quarterback was definitely the hit this year. Even Watson, actually Tannehill was...
I actually traded for Watson after the first couple games where he was like really bad against those. I remember he had like the really tough schedule to start the season.
Didn't you trade Rojo for him?
Ravens and the Steelers and the Chiefs or whatever. I think I traded DJ Moore for him.
DJ Moore, that's it.
Yeah, okay. I traded DJ Moore for him because, I mean, DJ Moore got a lot better in the second half of the season, but I think... Who was I rolling with at quarterback in that league? I don't even remember. Brady. Oh yeah, Brady. Yeah. So in that league, and this comes with knowing your league and some of the advice that we give, in that league, people hoard quarterbacks. So you can't stream in that league. And this is my home league that I won this past year. So you need 2 good quarterbacks on your roster if you want to stream matchups and stuff like that. So I actually traded DJ Moore for Deshaun Watson because my receiver core was just so stacked. And DJ Moore was kind of underperforming at that point in the season. And I traded him for Watson. And I believe Watson literally had like 7 straight games of like 30 points after that. So that was a great trade for me. And then I ended up making the gutsy decision not to play Watson in the playoffs. And thank God for Tom Brady literally just going off those last couple weeks.
Yeah. How many more elite seasons can realistically CMC and Zeke have for a dynasty? First of all, I think CMC is gonna like theoretically, he's gonna stay more relevant than Zeke for a longer period of time, and that's not even to do with obviously there's a talent discrepancy here because CMC is in my opinion the best running back.
A little bit probably.
There's an age discrepancy, but I'm going to talk about how they get their production. It's more easily translatable long term for a guy who can give you a bunch of receptions in the season versus a guy who's
Darren Sproles, how long he's been in the league. And not that Christian McCaffrey has as limited a skill set as Darren Sproles is, but if Christian McCaffrey's over the hill, can't run the ball anymore, he can still give you something in the receiving game into his 30s probably. So
David Johnson was able to catch the ball this year on the Texans who weren't even throwing to the running backs. Now we imagine CMC, if his rushing ability ever got to David Johnson level, heck, at least he's got receiving ability alone, top 15 type receiver ability at the running back position. So whereas Zeke, I still think again he's got a few years left simply because
he takes more of a punishment than CMC does for sure.
At minimum, the next 2 years, I think Zeke's got in Dallas because after the second year, they got a decision to make from a Caps perspective. But that's the minimum. I do think that he can make it through these next 2 years and still be a very valuable
asset. People underestimate that too, right? They're like, oh yeah, he's only got 2 years left. It's like, yeah, but how many players can you say that for, right? You can't say that Najee Harris is going to have 2 years of elite production. We think he will, but we can't say it with certainty. We know with certainty, basically, that when Zeke is on the field with Dak on the field and with everyone else healthy in that offense, he's going to be a top 10 running back. Yeah. We've seen, even if he isn't even that talented, he can score on the in a good offense. Obviously, he can score a lot of points that way and catch some balls too.
Yeah.
So
and we're talking about Zeke.
Underestimate the sure things that some of these 2 year window guys, a lot of people say about Derrick Henry too. They're like, oh, how much longer can Derrick Henry keep doing it? It's like, who cares? We know he's going to keep doing it for at least a little bit of time.
And I love how people with the recency bias with Zeke, oh, he had a terrible season when Dak got hurt, yada, yada, yada. In the first 5 games when Dak was healthy, he had 6 touchdowns in 5 games and over 7 targets per game. If Dak is healthy and this offense is running, Zeke is going to be a fantastic asset at the running back position. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, this is the absolute cheapest you're going to be able to acquire him. So if you're a win now team, you have to be throwing offers at him.
I would easily be trading low end first round picks for Zeke. I can
easily. Facts. If you were to do a 10-team Superflex dynasty, in a 10-team Superflex dynasty with Kamara, Aaron Jones, Mixon, and Gibson, which one would you trade if you need an upgrade receiver? I would easily trade Mixon. Not even a question.
That's okay. So that's where my mind went to, right? But Joe Mixon has some negative cachet behind his name.
However, there's positive.
Gibson to me is the one that's interesting, just because the thing with with Antonio Gibson that we have yet to see, as good as he was in the second half of the season running the ball, he never established a 3-down role on his team. It was always J.D. McKissic on 3rd down. I saw a stat from Jared Smola where it was I think it was 2% of Antonio Gibson's total production came on 3rd down this season.
That's crazy.
Because he was just basically he was so bad in pass protection, understandably so. He played receiver in college, that they just pulled him off the field every time, right? And Antonio Gibson's a better receiver than J.D. McKissic was, but they just didn't use him that way because if the quarterback audibled, they didn't trust him in protection. So unless Gibson can improve on that, and that is his biggest question going into the season, he will always be capped at low-end RB1 production. And that's kind of where Joe Mixon has been his entire career. And if Antonio Gibson, if someone has the opinion that he's going to reach an elite tier of running back because they failed to recognize that he didn't get that 3rd down role last year, then I think you could sell Antonio Gibson for a great receiver asset.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. The thing is, though, is Joe Mixon is the most divided player when it comes to dynasty.
For sure, yeah. There's definitely going to be some Joe Mixon truthers that you could probably take advantage of. My thing is that when I'm just looking at my view on it, and probably the majority of people's view, is that Joe Mixon is down, Antonio Gibson is up, the way that they view the two players. So you could probably trade Antonio Gibson for I don't know, maybe his own teammate. You could probably trade him for Terry McLaurin plus maybe, or you could trade him for someone might even be willing to trade a DK Metcalf for him, honestly. You could probably get a really good receiver asset for Antonio Gibson because of him being a really young running back. And Joe Mixon would probably only net you someone like Deontay Johnson, for example, maybe.
Yeah, that's fair. If I had a cool million just chilling, appreciate that. Yeah, that'd be super nice. A nice little studio like the Ballers.
Oh, that's exactly what I would do if I won the lottery. I would invest in like some dope ass like studio.
Yeah, yo, imagine that.
Yeah.
You two can definitely work your way up to the fantasy footballers. Keep grinding every day, and the audience will continue growing with the brand. Thanks for the video, fellas. Anytime, Nathan. Again, I see you in the comments. We really appreciate you watching and getting through all the videos. Again, my main thing is just seeing like the appreciation for the research and the time we do put into those videos. Because quite frankly, if we're going to put product on the channel, we want to make sure you guys are getting every bit of really quality content you guys can possibly get out of that video. I mean, our goal here is to just give you guys as much value. And to do that, guess what? We're spending those 3 hours researching the stats, finding all the points to really make for any single player.
And that's the only way you can grow in this industry, because the only way you can get opportunities like sponsorships and people to buy stuff from you is to have an audience, right? So the best way, and the way I think a lot of people fail to build an audience in this industry, is that they want to charge for things right away. It's like, I think you got to put in a year, 2, 3 years of mostly free work. Yes, we have draft guides, but you guys aren't obligated to buy those things. And we usually put out a majority of our content for free. We don't like exclusively put out like nothing on YouTube and be like, yeah, just buy our stuff, because I think that really limits your growth potential. And I think the easiest way to get people to buy stuff from you is to build brand loyalty and all that kind of stuff. And that's the only way to do it, is by providing free content to people.
100%. I mean, the problem with the industry, again, we mentioned it's so saturated. However, the reason why some brands can grow and some brands can't is 2 factors. Again, you mentioned you want to charge for shit right off the bat because you want to make money, you want to make money, you want to make money. Again, it's going to be a 1 year, 2 year, even 3 year process at times. We're only a year in.
Not even. Our channel started about 2 to 3 weeks from now, even longer than that, like about a month from now last season. So, or last year. So we're not even a year in yet. And I'm not like, the way that we're thinking about this, we're not like, we're going to make a lot of money this year. Like, we're still trying to build the audience, because to be honest with you, and I've talked just a peek behind the glass, I talk to Danny about this all the time. I would much rather have sponsors pay us than you guys.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, for our content. I would much rather read more ads than have you guys have to charge you for like rankings or live streams or anything like that, because I think what we're doing is not really that valuable enough for you guys to be paying us. We're giving you fantasy football advice. We're not helping you like repair your relationship with your wife or anything. Like, it's pretty simple what we're doing. So
we're not helping you make millions on the stock market.
No. We're basically just giving you fantasy football advice, kind of entertaining you in the same time. So what we try and do is just try and give you as much free stuff as we can.
For sure. So
and hopefully eventually it will pay off in a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road.
So there's that. And also the fact is, as we mentioned, it's a process. People expect instant gratification. Oh, if I'm not getting as much volume or I'm not getting as much interaction right away, I don't want to do it because I'm not seeing results from it. No, the motivation, the reason why we do what we do is because we feel like we know what we're talking about. You guys definitely can vouch for us on that. And we feel like you guys are getting as much value as possible from it. So that's just my idea. I know Bush is in the same kind of frame of mind. I think
that's the easiest way to grow. Like, the way that we look at this way to grow in the industry too is to do the opposite of what 95% of what people are doing are, right? Because like you said, 95% of people charge for their rankings, they charge for their live streams, charge for their articles, charge for this, charge for that. And if we don't do that, then and I don't think we should have to do that, because if I was a person who was just looking for fantasy football content, why would I pay Joe Blow on Twitter for his article when I don't even know if he knows what he's talking about, right? Like, there's no reason to do that. And the only way you can get people to invest in you is to invest in them, basically, by giving them free stuff. So
I fully agree.
Is that our first Twitter question?
Oh yeah, I see it. I just see
Travis there.
Yeah, we'll get into it in a second after we go through Ray. But I don't. Pain. You'll get there. I lost a chip this past year due to Christmas Camaros. Yeah, I enjoyed that. So I'm sorry for your loss, but I'm happy for my win.
And I actually was on the receiving end of it in our listener league, and I somehow still won. Thank God for Devonta Adams and Stephon Diggs and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, for real. 12-team Dynasty PPR. Who are you taking at 12? I'm thinking RB wide receiver. Hollow, thanks. So is this a startup? Or is this your rookie draft?
Yeah, that's pretty important to know.
Also,
in a
is it a super
12-team
flex?
dynasty PPR, I know that's a big quarterback. Like if this is a startup, I know that's a big quarterback hotspot for those younger guys
Super flex, yeah.
in a super flex. But I think, yeah, like taking RBs early, and if it is a startup question that you're talking about, is always a smart idea because
RBs and QBs.
RBs and QBs are always the way to go if it's a super flex league because the wide receiver position in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round is still so deep. Like you can get guys that have wide receiver 1 potential in the 7th round still. You cannot feasibly get that many guys in the 7th round at running back that have RB1 potential.
And like I typically look at it, for me personally, in redraft, I'm more like I'm going to the idea again. Like I mentioned it in our video, like what we learned from fantasy this year. In redraft, I'm more fine with taking wide receivers early, but in dynasty, it's still the aspect of I want to secure those younger running backs. I want to secure those young quarterbacks, and if they're off the board, heck, give me all the rookie picks valuable or as possible. Because the way I view it, what's going to maintain or increase in value over the offseason? Is it going to be that 106? Or is it going to be that 4th or 5th round receiver? Like, for example, let's just say hypothetically, right now, if the 108 and Kenny Golladay were on the board, who would you take in a startup draft?
Kenny Golladay, personally.
I would take the 108. Reason being, as we go into the draft, right before the draft, I bet you could flip 108 for Kenny Golladay plus.
Oh, probably.
People are just going to freak out.
Yeah, for sure.
So the way I think about it is what's going to maintain versus what's going to depreciate in value. Like if Kenny Golladay landed in a weird spot in this offseason, then you're in a pickle. Whereas the 108 is just a safer investment right now is how I view it. So
yeah.
Anyways, that was a little tangent for something completely unrelated to your question. But leave in the comments what your settings are. If it's super flex or if it's one quarterback, and we can kind of help you in terms of advice.
Appreciate popping the Twitter cherry for us.
Appreciate that.
If you guys didn't know this, we stream this live to our Fantasy Stock Exchange Twitter. You guys can follow that along with the two of us if you don't already do so. Yep. On Twitter, and we actually stream this Q&A session on Sundays on Twitter as well. So if you don't want to tune into YouTube, you can do it on there.
The two ats just being on your screen. If you want to also follow, that'd be greatly appreciated.
And then at Fantasy Stock EX is the Fantasy Stock Exchange where we stream this too.
Yep. Favorite D for next year? You know, the Cowboys defense is just
Buccaneers. If we're talking about for fantasy, it's the Buccaneers because the way that they operate and they were really good this year too. The way that they operate their defense is very privy to turnovers and sacks. So I'll take my defense. It's a very biased pick, I know, but the way that they operate, even if you score points on them, they will get turnovers. They will, and they have so many athletes on defense and so much speed on defense that there's good opportunity for defensive touchdowns as well.
Who else is even in the argument right now? Like I would say the Steelers, but they're losing.
Defense is really good. The Steelers defense probably going to lose a lot of pieces though.
Yeah.
The Ravens defense is one that's usually easy to bet on because they're always usually pretty good.
Washington, maybe.
Washington's solid. Yeah, it's all going to depend. San Fran is probably going to be undervalued just because a lot of their pieces were injured last year. I think they'd be a pretty solid defense. But yeah, I'll go with the Super Bowl champs for mine.
Yeah. Not to mention, I mean, we're mentioning the obvious defenses right now. There's going to be one sleeper defense that just comes out and is a top 5 unit. It happens every year. I mean, heck, Bush, in our draft guide last year, you wrote about how the Bucs were the sleeper defense to target. Yep. And that ended up coming to fruition. So, yeah. What's the first position you should secure in a rebuild? So if it's super flex,
quarterback.
Yeah. If it's not a super flex,
I like wide receiver, to be honest.
I was about to say, like, if I'm rebuilding, taking those young receivers, again, I've always said it multiple times, taking those younger receivers that you can get for cheap and you can just build around because the longevity I like. And then obviously, again, adding those running backs in your rookie draft.
I honestly think the better question here is what's the last position you secure in a rebuild? And the answer is always running back, because I think you could get, like, if you have a George Kittle on your team or like a elite wide receiver, you go out and get quarterbacks in a single quarterback league. I think the last position you want to target is running back, because you can use a 103, a 104, a 105 rookie pick or whatever that year to secure your running back core. Let's say you have 3 first round rookie picks, 103, 105, and 102 or something like that. You could build your running back core in one season. And you know those guys on that rookie contract, if they have the draft capital and the talent, they're going to get the ball. So I would generally just say the easiest way to think about it is that you always want to build your running back core last if you can.
Yeah, no, I fully agree, because let's be honest here. Once you're ready to compete, That's like a 4-year window for your running back position. And I've always said this, when you have your running backs, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, because your running backs
you're
will
ready to
always
compete.
carry your team because they're always the highest floor position in fantasy. And the reason that if you guys play DFS, you pay up for running backs and you cheap out at wide receiver.
100%. So hopefully that helped you out. What's your strategy for an auction draft? I'm about to do one soon.
I've actually never done one, and I'm really kind of mad at myself for never having done one because it does seem like a lot.
I'd be interested in trying one.
I would definitely be interested in trying one. I want to try one at some point, but I have never actually done it. Maybe if our channel gets to a point that we have a pretty big audience or something like that, we might
diverse.
Yeah, we might actually like have an auction draft with you guys too, potentially, and maybe do like a live type thing where you guys come and do it with us in person or something like that. I think that'd be really fun to do, but that's probably a ways down the road. Yeah. But yeah, I think an auction. I've never done any auction leagues, but we might actually try and sneak some auction content into our redraft guide if we possibly can find a writer to contribute to that. So maybe you can get some strategy advice from him or her.
For sure.
Have some.
I've done like a couple like auction mock drafts, and again, like I'd have to check in on those. But typically, what I would do in those, like, you could take this with a grain of salt because I haven't been in an actual league with it. But I typically like getting like 2 studs at the running back position. So whether that's a top 3 running back and another top 12 running back, just kind of securing those 2 spots. And then just getting values at every other position, to be quite honest. Like,
yeah, I think the overall philosophy would probably be the same. You cheap out at quarterback, you cheap out probably at tight end too.
It's kind of like FanDuel if you think about it.
Yeah, and wide receiver honestly would probably be a position where you're targeting those middle tier guys like the Terry McLaurins this past year and the DK Metcalfs and the Stephon Diggs. Is like anyone who's got a perceived lower value would probably be who you'd target, and then you'd probably just blow most of your budget on running backs.
Yeah, I know, I agree. What's up, boys? Kenny G screwed me with injuries last year, and with Goff taking over, I'm not touching any receiver from Detroit.
I mean, Kenny G might not be in Detroit, so
I agree. I think he's gonna be in Oakland or Las Vegas, to be honest.
Makes a lot of sense.
We'll get through these last couple questions as well.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely. When my Cowboys build that defense and we're ready to compete for next year, you'll see my live reaction.
We're going to try and have some guests on too during the draft. We might throw on some of the guys that we know from around the industry, see if when their teams are on the clock or whatever, see if they want to hop into the stream and talk about the pick or whatever. Like, I know we'll reach out to Snacks and Animal, Noah, see if those guys want to come in.
Yeah, see all those boys. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, you'll remember having all those guys on for the quiz shows during the offseason last year.
We had those guys on for the draft.
Yeah, we had. Yeah, it was either on our channel or Nick's.
Actually, we might have been on Notorious Fantasy's channel for most of it last year, actually.
Regardless, I ended up. I found the clip. If you guys haven't already seen it, basically when the Cowboys picked CeeDee Lamb, I literally fell off my chair and I was like,
I'd actually like to go back and watch my reaction to the Tristan Wirfs pick, low-key.
Oh, no, you were excited.
I'm sure I was, but I want to know how excited I was because I don't think I even knew how good the guy was going to be at the time.
I still remember at one point you're like, oh, yeah, what if the Cowboys take like, I think you said some random like player. I think you're like, oh, yeah, what if the Cowboys take like freaking
Zach Bond?
yeah. And I'm like, don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. Don't you put that evil on me. Yeah. You know, when they picked CeeDee Lamb, my eyes like got like that big and like I freaked out. And then Lucas and Tyler were like, oh, I bet he'll be a great cornerback for you guys.
Yeah,
like,
I bet.
Come on. But Toodles, have a great rest of the weekend, boys. Appreciate that, Ray. You as well. Peace out, brother. Thadon says it's a super flex 2 tight end premium $1,000 budget. Okay, so if that's the case, if it's a redraft, you could cheap out at the quarterback position. To be quite honest, 2
tight end premium.
Yeah,
you better spend up at tight end then.
You got to get Darren Waller.
Yeah, it's the kind of like strategy of finding breakout tight ends will be very, very important in that kind of league. Because if you were somehow able to predict TJ Hawkinson and I don't know, maybe Jonnu Smith pre-injury, I'm trying to think of who else did really well as a late round tight end this past year. Eric Ebron, maybe. If you went Eric Ebron and TJ Hawkinson this past year.
Logan Thomas?
Yeah, Logan Thomas. Yeah, if you went like those kind of guys this past year on a 2 tight end premium, you would have had a huge leg up at the position because whoever the George Kittle owner was, whoever the Travis Kelce owner was, would have spent a fortune on those guys in the auction. So
Robert Tonyan.
Yeah, Robert Tonyan. Yeah, that's the guy I was thinking of. I knew there was one that I was forgetting. Yeah, if you were able to do something like that and predict kind of like a breakout tight end or two in this coming year's like draft and an auction draft, like that's a huge leg up. So I would really be shooting darts at like low end tight ends for, in my opinion, that's what I would do.
Yeah, for sure. The way I look at it is because it's a redraft super flex, you can get those value guys. Like you can get the Cousins, the Carr. You can kind of, I don't want to say cheap out the quarterback position because the way I'm looking at it, a lot of people are just going to overspend at it, thinking in the dynasty mindset. However, that's a position you can kind of capitalize on market value. Tight end, you need at least one stud. You need at least one of the top 3 tight ends, in my opinion. And then with the other tight end spot in your lineup, again, as Corey mentioned, you're just throwing dart throws at those high upside guys. Because really, even if you, I don't want to say miss, because like, be honest, like you're probably not going to miss terribly. At least you got the anchor of one of those studs. But if you hit and you got 2 studs at that position, then like your league mates are at such a disadvantage when they face you because quite frankly here, you got Darren Waller giving you 20 points per game and you got freaking, I don't know, Noah Fant giving you like 15. Like it's basically over. That's 35 points already from 2 freaking positions.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, no, I fully agree. Again, speaking of Noah Fant, he's definitely going to be one of the guys I'm going to mention in a breakout video at some point this offseason.
Yeah.
Because it really can't get worse than what the Broncos offense was facing last season.
For sure.
Awesome. I'll definitely be there. Love it, Joseph. It's going to be some fun. It's going to be a great time, especially when the Cowboys acquire that Super Bowl defense. So
can't imagine thinking that.
Would love if Carr got another weapon like Kenny. Yeah, that'd be fun, man. That'd be.
You guys need a locker room guy like Micah Parsons.
God, no, I would cry if the Cowboys took Parsons. No, I genuinely think I would turn off the stream. To be honest,
I'd laugh.
I'd just get off
so hard,
man. They're going to go linebacker, trade down, and just take a JOK. That way he has some nickel versatility.
He's going very low, dude. I think he's going to go high as hell, especially if Parsons has all these concerns. He's going to go high. JOK.
He's so good, bro. You know, he spent like 75% of his snaps in the nickel last year.
Yeah, dude, he is going to go high. Like very.
Yeah. No, like, and that's why I like his fit for Dallas because like he can be that third down inside line or third down nickel for you, and then he can give you some will versatility on first and second, in my opinion. Like he's such a rangy player. He's so athletic, he's so smart, and he can cover like anybody in this draft at the position. So
yeah. All right. So we're gonna head out of here, guys. This one went pretty long.
We'll try and a little tangent.
Yeah, we'll try and keep these to 12 p.m. on Sundays. So if you guys want to tune in next week, if you got more questions, think of them in advance. Maybe work some trades, send some feelers out there, and then come back to us next week. Make sure you guys join us. We'll try and go 12 p.m. sharp next week, Eastern Standard Time, on Sunday, the 28th of February. Hopefully, we'll have some better weather in Canada by then.
Yeah, for sure. Anyways, that was fun. We'll see you guys next Sunday on this live stream, and tune in this week because we got these next 2 prospect battles coming to the channel. And as Corey already mentioned, Trevor Lawrence versus Justin Fields, and those 2 North Carolina running backs in Michael Carter and Devonta Williams. But as always,